Welcome back to True Print for Life. I'm your host, Christina Vera, and I'm really excited today to have my guest co-host with me, Miss Aliana Richards. Aliana, welcome to True Print for Life.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm so excited to have so it's so interesting, as you know, for our listeners, we love having interesting people come onto the podcast. We talk about everything from business to lifestyle to finances, and so just everyday life as women. And so I feel like you are such a relatable person. I've known you for so many years, and I feel like I've been able just to watch all of the different journeys that you have been on. And so I want to give you a proper introduction and just tell our listeners more about who you are, but we will be able to dive deeper and you can share more of just your personal journey. So Miss Aliana Richards is the owner of Mixed, MX''D, Natural Skincare, and the curator of the exclusive Fashion and Beauty Expo. She's also on the board of the up and coming nonprofit Sneaker Ball 614, which focuses on your youth mental health and resources. She received her bachelor's and MBA. Yes, she got degrees from Southern New Hampshire University, where her focus has always been entrepreneurship. So welcome, Miss Aliana.
Thank you. Long time in the making, right?
Yes.
We have literally grown up together.
Oh my God. So crazy. So crazy. And now you are running amazing businesses. You are on boards. You are a mom. You are doing so many incredible things. And so I would love just to hear your journey of even just getting into first of all, motherhood. We all know that is a journey. That's
a journey. An understatement.
Oh my, it's so interesting. So we knew each other as teenagers.
Yes.
And, we were both moms of daughters. And I think back to when we were kids and just how we used to move and operate and how we just thought we had it all figured out.
We just knew we was all that. Had it all figured out. And now we look at our kids y'all have no idea.
No idea. And so as you are in this process, because you have a teenage daughter, what has been some of just the learning, just that learning process of just seeing your kid, transform into this young adult and having to kind of navigate, this is a mini version of me in some ways. Really.
Legit. My daughter is literally mini me, down to expressions, the way she walks, the way she talks, the way she moves. You can attest to this.
I can. Absolutely.
And I think for me, my motherhood journey is an evolving journey, and I have to apologize to my oldest all the time because I'm like, baby girl, I'm sorry, because we grew up together, but we didn't grow up together, because you really don't get a blueprint from your parents. They didn't have a blueprint, so it's always I told my oldest, I was like, you were kind of like my trial.
So true.
I'm sorry if it feels like the other ones get a little bit more patience, because I have a younger one too, and I have 15 and 4.
15 and 4. So
it's two teenagers, really, honestly. Yeah. 2 teenagers, because it's I'm constantly having to turn my mind off and on. So it's I'm in teenage mom. I got a teenager, so I got to be in a teenager mindset. And then 2 seconds later, I have to remember that my toddler is not a teenager, so I have to shift. So it's really interesting. I'm just those moments where your mom's I pray you have a child that's just like you. I think my mom said that with extra emphasis.
She has
because I look at my daughter and I'm just wow, you're all the better pieces of me, but you got some of my rigid, what is it called, rigid edges. I'm trying to smooth them out, but it's hard. It's hard, especially when you're trying to wear multiple hats. So I didn't think that I would be a mom of 2 girls, but I always wanted girls. But now I'm God, you didn't have to take me literally. You really could have just been she don't need that.
She don't need all that.
She don't need all that. And now here I am can I just have a son so I can break out the estrogen in my house?
Them boys ain't no different. Adrian,
but they said there's nothing like the love of a son, though.
They say that. I'm still waiting for that to fully kick in. A teenager. I mean, maybe. I'm hoping, because granted, my son is super sweet.
Yes.
He's so Adrian will notice if my toenail polish is different. He was like, that's a different color. Or he'll ask me, so he'll say like some of the sweetest, kindest things to me, but then it's very short lived because then he's just like his sisters. It's like just a whole, I'm just like, I'm tired.
Yes.
I'm done. I'm 3, I'm done.
Yes.
But
every day I'm just like, yeah, because I'm like, in a few years, my daughter will be 18. And then I remind myself like, oh, you're not done like you would have been. But no, you just had like, you were almost done.
Right.
And out the door. So it's hard, especially like I said, when you're trying to run different hats. Like I actually just enrolled to get my doctorate. I don't know what's wrong with me. Like I don't know.
That's exciting.
So I'm like, I haven't told a lot of people because, a lot of people pray on your downfall just as much as they praying for you.
Right.
They be in the background sending up them prayers that you didn't even know were going up there. So it's kind of like a journey I kind of wanted to go on by myself. But my oldest is the reason why I even have 2 degrees because I was like everybody else. Got out of high school, you got to go to college. Da, da, da.
Yeah.
Life happens. You know what I'm saying? And I went through a traumatic experience and it took me on a whole nother journey that I didn't even think was a part of my life.
Yeah.
But then one day I was walking her into elementary school and Michaela was like, Mom, do you have a college degree? Because you're always telling me to go to college and, make good grades. And I was like, well, I don't have one. And why? Little girl.
Right.
I said, well, I'll make you a promise. When you graduate elementary school, I'll have my bachelor's degree. So she graduated 5th grade and I graduated college with my bachelor's. And then she said, well, are you done? I was like, I kind of thought about my master's. She was like, well, promise me you'll get it done by the time I'm done with middle school. I'm like, why I keep making these promises to her and putting this unnecessary stress on my life? But then I did it. I graduated before she graduated 8th grade.
Wow.
So then I'm just like, okay, do I want to go to law school or do I want to get my doctorate? And I'm not going to lie, I'm very vain. I really just want to be called doctor.
Dr. Richards.
You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I feel like it will elevate me to a different level because I'm very passionate about women, specifically single moms, and being that example to say, hey, listen, you've probably been there. I've probably been there 2 times.
Yeah.
But I was still able to maintain being a mom, being a woman, and still achieving my goals because, like they say, it was delayed, but it wasn't denied.
Say that again.
Do you know what I'm saying? Delayed, but never denied.
I love that.
So for me, it's like I'm the oldest, but I wasn't first generation college graduate. My brother was, but I'm first generation master's.
Wow.
And I'll be first generation doctorate. So setting those expectations for my kids is important to me. And more importantly, having girls, I don't care what the world tells you, you can do whatever you want to do. And sometimes, no offense, better than men. It's just really what it boils down to. So having them see me do that, it's changing the narrative within my, within generation, because generational curses is a big thing, and having to break those and being someone like myself who was very adamant when I had my girls, like it's going to stop here. Yeah. I didn't know that when I said that, that it was going to be literally literal and all of the unnecessary things that I've had to go through just because I made a bold statement and said, it stops here. Right. So now it's like, hey, I done said it. Now I got to make do on it. I'm going to stand on it. So
wow. It's so interesting. Like every interview I've had today, it has like in some shape or form, one of the guests have shared like the power of what you say and the power of how you think, like the mindset. And so hearing you say that, it's literally like triple fold at this point because people don't understand the power of, what you say to yourself, what you say to other people, essentially how you think about yourself, how you think about your abilities or lack thereof. Like all of that really does have an impact.
It definitely does. And I think it's something I will admit to everybody. I struggle with it daily because it's like you have so many people that speak so much negative in your life. Yeah. And the negative oftentimes outweighs the positive. And for me, that's where I've struggled. There have been so many things that have been said about me, whether in my face, behind my back, in a pillow, in a closet. And it's a lot of things that you don't realize just how much of an impact it has until you start noticing some things. And here I am knocking on the precipice, 40 years old. And and I'm just like, wow, if these things had not been said about me, could I have gotten here sooner?
Yep.
But at the same time, like I said, delayed is never denied.
Yeah.
And then I have to remind myself, if I would have gotten here sooner, could I have squandered it?
Yeah.
Would I have been ready for the opportunity? Could I have handled everything that way? You know what I'm saying? And it's like I tell everybody all the time, if I hadn't had Michaela, I was on my way.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, y'all, I would have been a video vixen. I'd have been out here writing an all tale book.
Yeah.
Like, that's where my life was going. So while everybody's like, you know, she was an unwed mother and all this type of other stuff, everything is done intentionally.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because of her, I had to grow up. I had to realize I've always been a dreamer, but my mom didn't know how to raise a dreamer.
Yeah.
So, you know, no fault of her own.
Yeah.
She tried to crush it. It wasn't until I was in my 30s, so I said, I don't care what the world say. I'm just going to step out here and do it.
Yeah.
I want to be a business owner. Didn't know what that entailed, but here I am.
Yeah.
Still trying to figure it out. You know what I mean? So
you said something really powerful just a second ago. You said your mother didn't know how to raise a dreamer.
Nope.
And I think there is so much power in that statement, because we automatically just assume that people know how to handle like another person, your child. And to your point, you know, if you have parents or have experienced a similar relationship, your vision is your vision. And we spend so much time trying to convince other people of our visions and our purposes and our callings on our lives. And we obviously take to heart, like, our parents, like, I mean, those are your parents, you know, and not realizing some of the toxicity and their trauma of how they were raised. You know, you said that earlier on, like, you don't recognize like how much of that is intertwined with what you believe about yourself, or what you may even unintentionally have put out on your own children. And so even just that dynamic of, you know, having to work through like just that kind of trauma, like that mother-daughter trauma of parents who were not given the same freedoms we were given. Because I think it is generational.
It's generational, because I think your mom and my mom are kind of around the same age. I had the older parents amongst all of my friends, right? So my mom's generation is let's be realistic. They're realistic, you know. The reality is this, like, you need to go work for a job for 30 years, get a retirement plan. And I don't knock it. If that's your journey, that's your journey. Like, my brother is very much corporate. Yeah. But when you look at my brother and myself, we are completely different. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. Right. But I struggled with that for years. There's a lot of, you know, as a parent, there's a lot of trauma that we have from childhood that we don't realize is carrying over into our children. And so we start seeing some of those behaviors in our children. And like, unfortunately, because of decisions that I've made, you know, as far as how my daughter became about, the same traumas that I've dealt with in my whole life concerning my father and all this type of other stuff, unfortunately, my daughter's experiencing those same things. So it's hard for me sometimes to counsel her through those when you're still dealing with your own trauma yourself. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And how do we really ever get over that trauma when there's such a stigma of mental health? You keep that in-house. You don't tell nobody about your business. Yeah. But who do we tell? Right. So true. Do you know what I mean? And especially when you experience being a single mom and not having that partner to be able to confide in, unfortunately. And I've confided in my daughter probably about some things, or she's seen some things that she should have never seen. But baby girl, we're growing up together at this point. I mean, I wasn't a teenage mom, but I was still young. I was barely 22. Yeah. Barely knew what life was. Right. So I think as far as parents, we do ourselves an injustice by not getting to the root of what the problem is. Right. And not recognizing why we treat or certain relationships a certain way, not understanding that is connected to possibly childhood trauma. I remember going to my first therapist, and I was, we was just, that first few sessions where they want to like, well, tell me about your life. And I'm like, girl, what you want to know? Like, just like, let's get started. Right. Like, tell me how to fix it. Because people need to talk more about like the process with therapy. They're like, get a therapist. And it's like,
but nobody prepares you the fact that you're going to have to go through and relive and say out loud without fronting, right? Because I felt like my first couple of therapy sessions, I was fronting because I'm like, I don't want to tell this woman all my problems. I don't want to tell this woman all the real shit that I done went through. I was like, man, this is going to be real. And so I think, but what I loved about her, she knew I wasn't being 100. She was like, so tell me more about that. She kept saying, tell me more about that.
Exactly.
So it was her way of being like, all right, keep going because you're not telling me everything. And one of the craziest parts I remember out of my sessions with her, she said, you know why you have issues with men? And I said, no, that's why I'm paying you.
Exactly. Can you tell me? Because I want to know.
I'm like, girl, I'm trying to get
curious minds want to know. That's what I'm here for. I pay you $25.
Right? Tell me why. No, I don't know. Like, this is why I'm trying to talk to you. And she's like, you may not want to hear this, but she said, the reason why you have an issue with men is that you have an issue respecting men because you don't respect your father.
Big fat. Can we drop the? What's he say? Drop the clue bombs on. What does Charlamagne say? Listen, if we could drop this mic without breaking it, y'all, we would drop it right now. Let's talk about it.
I was like, and I was like, I barely have spoken to you about my father. She's like, but what you have shared and the fact that you haven't shared much more than what you've shared tells me that there's more there and that you really don't respect your dad. And I said, and I didn't know what to say in that moment. And then she went a step further in saying, because then, you know, I had shared with her some things that happened in my childhood and how I was with him when he started cheating on my mom, because he would take us like he was going to a work function, and he was really taking us to go meet up with some girl. And I remember the day I was like, this something about this don't seem right. Like, I ain't the smartest, you know, but I was just like, something, it just don't seem right. And nothing inappropriate ever happened in front of us, but it was enough for me to know that, like, we not where you just told my mom we were.
It's so the principle,
it was the principle. So I remember the day I went home, I told my mom, and I was like, look, Mom, this is where we went. There was a lady there. She had a couple kids. Like, I'm sitting here at 10 years old, just like telling my mom all this stuff. And my mom just like shaking her head. She didn't give me no reaction. But I remember a couple of days later, I heard a whole altercation. So I'm telling the therapist this, mind you, this is like years later. But she was like, and so she says something else to me when she goes, she was like, so how did the dynamics change between you and your mother after that? And I said, what you mean? She was like, well, if you think about it, you're the reason your mom's whole life just ended. Like, the marriage she knew, what she thought was happening. She was like, was there a disconnect between you and your mother after you were the one who told her basically what your dad was doing? And I was like, now that you mention it, there was. And it wasn't intentional, but she just started to ask me these things that I had never thought about in this way. Yeah. And so to your point earlier about just things that trigger us and, you know, all these crazy relationships I had been in before I ultimately ended up marrying, you know.
We knew that was coming. You may not have known it, but we all know. If y'all been here from the beginning, we knew it was going to come back full circle.
You know, I just was trying to live my life, and I just was, you know, and we were different people at that time.
Very much so.
Very different people.
We've literally seen y'all grow independently and together. I mean, it's a beautiful, y'all are, you know, they say relationship goals for real, because when you talk about it nowadays, you don't really see too many marriages where it's really based off, like, I can say this was my first love, like you and Ken, like that's real life, real love in the moment. Like, y'all can see where it was like, okay, but y'all were together, but y'all both knew like, hey, we gonna need to go. Because sometimes you gotta go in order to grow up independently. Because if you stay together, it's only gonna cause detriment, right? And you have to go through experiences. But now you guys probably appreciate each other more because of that distance at that time. But for to see it come back full circle, look, y'all know I was the biggest fan. I was like,
it took us so much. I mean, literally, when she told me that in therapy that many years ago, I then knew like she was right. Like, I had you know, I had this attitude about, listen, you ain't got to be here. Like, I don't care. Like, it was
crazy because I am the same.
And she's like, fine.
And I hate, and you know what? And I hate that I'm that way because my oldest, Michaela, will say some things and I'll be like, I hate that you feel that way. Like, you're 15 and you're already like, men are this, men are that. Men. I appreciate the fact that you understand that men can be like that, but I also want you to understand that they're not all like that.
Right.
And you have to understand everybody has their own traumas. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, if you ain't got to learn the lesson, don't learn the lesson. Just like listen to me, but take what you've seen me go through as your mom, and be cognizant of it, so that when it rears its ugly head in your life, you can be like,
right.
See my mom do it, and I'm not here for it. Do you know what I mean? So it's just crazy. Like, therapy, you got to be prepared, because I'll tell you, I stop and start therapy like all the time because it's emotionally too much for me. Right. My first 3 sessions this last go around, all I did was cry. I didn't say not one word. Yeah. She's like, okay, well, your time's up. I was like, but we didn't talk about anything. She's like, but you did what you needed to do. Yeah. Because sometimes you got to get all the tears out and all the emotions out before you can start diving down into what the issue is. Right. And I was like, you know, I tell everybody, this is why, like, youth mental health is big right now. Yeah. If we probably all needed therapy. Right. Oh, absolutely. When we were in school, right? But the things that these kids, unfortunately, are dealing with now, we didn't have to. No. I mean, let's be honest. When we fought. And it was over. With. It was no video. Probably going to be friends the next day. Yeah. Like, there was no video. It was just respect, no videos, no nothing. Like, these kids are fighting and then catching charges. Right. And catching cases because they're not. I don't know if you can really say fights are fair, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, we just grew up different, and to see these kids have to deal with so much. Social media does not help at all. Not. It's just an unreal. I'm glad we didn't have. Could you imagine? No, if we had Facebook, I mean, we had pagers. We were growing up, like, had pagers, and thought we was, and we thought we was doctors. I don't know who we thought we. You should have seen Miss Dalton. We had pagers. I had a pager and a cell phone. You couldn't tell me nothing. She was the only one with a car. Yep, and we had a pager. She had a car, and we was just, you couldn't tell us nothing. I was getting in trouble all the time. We literally was like, I gotta get a payphone so I can call whoever just beat me. And it's just like what that was the most technology that was integrated in our lives. Listen, couldn't nobody I told my daughter, I was telling her about what was it called? Nextel. She was like, what is that? I was like, oh, my heart. I know. I said, let me tell you about how you could never give your friend your Nextel chirp if they was the friend that had no filter, because you never knew what they was going to walk. We're going to come through in the middle of something. And she was like, but what do you mean? I was like, I was that friend. Yes. I'm coming through your chirp and I'm going to say it and you better pray. Oh my God. It's so true. Or click it 2 times so they know. Right. I was like, oh, let me step out because it's coming. Right. But it's a life. It's so different. And that, to your point, I think it's the mental health of our young people. It breaks my heart every single time I encounter a student who is already feels so defeated and their life hasn't even began. And I hate to say this, right? But it also comes down to parents, right? Yeah. And a lot of these kids, unfortunately, are being raised by kids. And what I mean is, they mama had them young, right? You know what I'm saying? And I'm not knocking it, because things happen. And you know, if you're a teenage mom, you know what? I commend you if you stuck it through and you did what you had to do. Do you know what I'm saying? But if they were dealing with their own trauma, and now they not had one kid, but then they had another one, and then they had another one. By the time they're 25, they got 5 kids. Where's her help? Yeah. You know what I mean? At that point, her family's probably written her off. Yep. Do you know what I mean? They don't want nothing to do with her, because here she comes with all these kids. So the kids are literally a product of their environment. And the reality is their mom is probably screaming for help. Right. And the child sees that. Yeah. And the child doesn't want to put no more undue trauma or pressure on her parent or his or her parent. So then they internalize that. Yeah. And then they act out in school, and teachers want to write them off as bad kids and all this type of other stuff. They're not bad. Yeah. They need help. Right. And they don't get the help. And then you see on the news every couple weeks, or, you know, maybe every couple days, this child done took their life. This child done took their life. Like, it's sad. We have there is so much power and so much in these young kids. And, you know, I'm gonna take it biblical for a minute, right? I just have to, because it's on my spirit to say, like, people need to wake up and realize, why is this particular generation being killed off at such a fast rate? Right. What is it in them that the world needs that the devil don't want them to come to? That he has to kill, steal, and destroy. Right. He done gave up on most of us. He ain't worried about the older generations. He's worried about this generation coming after us. Look at them. Yeah. They're tech savvy. They're business savvy. Got businesses. They're doing all of these good things. Right. There's so much change that is going to come forth because of them. Yeah. It's no coincidence that it's committing suicide at such a high rate, or they're killing each other off. Right. People need to get real with themselves and see what's going on and realize this generation is where it's at.
I couldn't agree with you more. It just pains me. I mean, you know, in the other work, both roles of what I do full time, the messages I get, whether it be another kid took another kid's life or they took their own life, and every single time I'm just like, damn, like, could I have done something? Like, what, you know, how are we showing up as adults? How are we showing up as parents? Mentors, coaches, whatever it is, to where
we need to bring the community back.
You can't, you know, it's so funny you say that, because it's so crazy. Like, that concept of, you know, a village, the village is no longer the village. And so that's important to be able to know. It's like, back in the day, whether you were poor or not, like, you know, I just remember, if my mom had to work or something was going on, my aunt, like, somebody was like gonna help. I mean, we still went through a lot, even not having, you know, a lot of family support. But I know for a fact, I remember being at my Aunt Evelyn's house all the time. And that's because my mom was at work. Or, you know, like, she ain't have money for groceries that particular day. I didn't realize we was eating at Titi Evelyn's house because, you know, she ain't have money for dinner. Right. But that's what you did. And now there is this level. And some people feel like the village has broken up because of the toxicity that people realize that some of those villages have. So it's like, I'd rather struggle and do it by myself than to further expose myself or my children to the traumas of things that I had to go through. So it's hard because you want a village, not understanding that you don't have to necessarily have the village you were born with. You could create a village.
What did my pastor say? He said your parents were necessary for your birth, but not necessary for your purpose. And I think that's the same with your family. Right. Everybody wants to be a part of the family. That concept of big family, Sunday dinners, and all that type of other stuff, unfortunately, that's out the window. We would all have to intentionally come together and say, you know what, enough is enough. Yeah. But I don't come from a big family.
Yeah. So it's just y'all.
It's literally just me. And it's like, my kids will tell you all the time, this my TT Chelsea, this my TT Monique. You ain't blood related to me. Right. But they know that's ain't aunties. Right. Do you see what I'm saying? Right. So I think if we realize that, we'd all be better off. We'd all be able to achieve our dreams too if we would just learn to rely on each other. Yeah. I'm not saying drop your kids off with Joe Blow Slow down the street, because people crazy these days. Yeah. But we need to bring community back. We really need to take that concept of village and bring it back. And if we did that, I think we'd be better off.
I couldn't agree more. Well, as we wrap up, I feel like I could talk to you forever. So we're going to have to have you back.
Could, and that's I'm about to say,
we're going to bring you
where
back.
To find me.
Yes. And I guess as we are closing, you know, now knowing like what you know and everything you've been through and just this journey that we're all still on, right? It's never ending. I don't think you ever stop evolving and growing. Right. But if you could go back to 12-year-old Aliana,
girl,
what would you tell 12-year-old Aliana?
And it's crazy that you say 12-year-old Aliana, because 12-year-old Aliana is when my life changed.
Really?
That's when my parents got remarried and my life just...
Wow.
So I think that, if I could, look, I might cry on this one. If I can go back and tell her, I'll probably tell her change is okay, right? Change is okay. And reach out if you got problems. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, just change and breathe. Because I could tell you from 12 to 18, I was breathing, but I wasn't breathing. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't living. And because of that, it took me a long time to get here. But by the grace of God, I'm here.
Yes. You are. And you
still going.
Still going.
Still going. Still
got
learning.
A company,
Exactly.
Learning, growing, getting possibly Dr. Richards in the pipeline.
Listen, and I tell all my friends, y'all gonna call me doctor. You better save me in your phone. When y'all introduce me, say, this is my doctor friend.
Doctor friend.
Okay, my doctor friend. I can't just be Aliana no more. Just at least for 6 months. Give me 6 months, y'all.
Yes.
Like, after that, y'all can go, maybe.
Okay. All right.
But for 6 months.
Dr. Richards.
And I'm going to save it in your phone so you know when you can stop saying
it. I'm all about a doctor. I'm all about it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Aliana, thank you for being here today. Thank you for sharing just your heart, your transparency. I'm excited to see the work that you'll continue to do and the impact you'll continue to make. And here at True Print for Life, we like to always end every single episode with our own personal mantra, which is, it's bigger than you. Mm-hmm. So if you'll indulge me, and together we're going to say, it's bigger than you. There we go.
Thank you so much for listening today. We're excited and we hope that you follow us on
Instagram, True Print for Life, YouTube channel, also True Print for Life. And make sure that you share, like, watch our videos. Make sure that you follow us on all streaming platforms.